Welcome to Ecoholics, and now we are going to study a very important part of the teaching aptitude series, which is a very important paper or module in the UGC NET paper 1. Now, in the teaching aptitude module, there's a very integral and an important part which is evaluation systems. In the present scenario, most of the questions are asked from the evaluation systems, and this is why we're going to understand today the various concepts regarding evaluation systems. So let's begin with our class today. The very first thing that we're going to start with is the various techniques and innovations which are used by a faculty, by a teacher to enhance the whole evaluation technique. Evaluation is very necessary part of teaching aptitude or the teaching and learning experience in practical as well, because evaluation is going to make sure that the student is understanding the concepts, memorizing the concepts, retaining the concepts, and also is able to provide presentation of all of these concepts in a very precise and a very interesting manner. And to incorporate all of these things, there are various techniques which have been used by various teachers and faculties, and you can also utilize it and you can understand it, especially to inculcate that aptitude of teaching within you. The very first thing that we're going to start with is tests. Now, as you can see, these tests, if taken at regular intervals and in regular chunks of whatever material has been imparted to the students, if they are taken that way, then definitely these tests are going to be very, very important source of information and practice for the students to get better prepared for their examinations. And which is why tests become a very easy, a very fundamental and a very nice, regular, sincere way to guide the students through the whole evaluation process. Then we have the next one, which is practical examinations. Practical examinations are very, very important, especially for all of those subjects which are very applied or practical in nature. For example, you must have seen in school, there are various laboratories. You will have science laboratories, you would have mathematics laboratories, or you would have certain laboratories of craft. So all of such subjects require certain practical examinations to be taken, and which is why it's very important for a faculty to take care of those practical examinations. Ultimately, any subject which is practical in nature, if the evaluation does not have that practical part in it and only has theoretical part in it, it is just going to be very, very biased, or it is not going to be fully focused on the full holistic knowledge that a student knows, and which is why this is also very important part of evaluation. Then we have observations. Observations are a certain system of evaluation or a technique of evaluation which is not going to be generally told to the students initially. Observations are like notes that are taken by a faculty, by a teacher of the students, and how the students react to a certain scenario, or probably how the students are doing their learning their syllabus or content. If, for example, the students are learning a very difficult topic of any theoretical or practical subject, the faculty also has a responsibility to observe whether that student or those students have a proper direction or perception of understanding what they're doing exactly, or just they're memorizing it or rote learning it just for the sake of examination. So this observation criteria is specially for the very internal and integral part of a teacher's evaluation systems that they design, so that they can take note of students' performances in a better way. Then we have is interview. Now, interviews are normally taken for certain examinations, like there are certain competitive examinations. After clearing those competitive examinations, preliminary level, then maybe intermediate level, then the last level would be a general interview, and that interview would be, maybe it can be a group discussion or it can also be a personal interview. Interviews normally are going to project whether the candidate, whether the student has prepared holistically or not. So this kind of evaluation system normally is used in many of the competitive examinations, or probably if a student or a candidate is going for a certain type of a specialization course in particular university or a college or an institution. So the interviewing panel is going to identify whether the students only know a particular theory or they are also having a certain persona, and that is why the interviews are normally a part of all of these competitive examinations, or if a candidate is preparing for a special kind of a course in a certain institution or a college or university, and the interviewing panel is going to identify whether that candidate or a student is apt for that position of either a job or a particular candidature for a particular course. And interviewing panel is not just going to focus on the theoretical aspects or concepts, but also the whole personality and the alertness in that interview interview, and which is why this becomes a very interesting part and game changer in the whole evaluation processes. The next one that we have is checklist. Now, checklist is normally used by faculties, by anyone who does the evaluation, which can be made something like this. So you can make like a checklist of things that should be done in a particular set of evaluation processes. For example, in that particular checklist, you are going to mention all of those tests, all of those internal or external examinations that you want to incorporate as a person in an evaluation system. So for example, you would want to take 3 tests in an internal session during a certain semester. One test is going to identify with their concepts, right? Other is a practical examination, right? The third probably has to do something related to practical approach. So you may have a certain industrial visits or any type of a visit in an external area where the student can learn, observe, and also provide like a report. Okay, and the last one can be maybe a sort of an interview or interaction and discussion with the faculty. So now, during that evaluation process, all of these tests are going to be timelined. You will make a schedule as a faculty of all of these things, and you're going to mark. Okay, fine. This is done. Mark. Then this is done. Mark. So that. Now, this is a very necessary process whether or not you follow a checklist type of an evaluation system. It is a very necessary process so that as a faculty, you understand a certain timeline within which you have to complete the whole evaluation for students, and which is why this is a very practical approach to systematize and organize your whole evaluation. Right? Then we have the rating scale. Now this rating scales normally are used to rank. These are basically ranks can be provided to students. For example, the examination has end, or any type of a competitive examination also has something like AIR 1, right? AIR 2, 3, 4, likewise. So rating scales normally are going to categorize students through various ranks, on the basis of their percentile, on the basis of their percentage, on the basis of probably any other parameter that particular examination is having. So rating scales is quite an idea to evaluate and categorize students or candidates according to their performance, right? Then we have the next one, which is the attitudinal scale. Attitudinal scale is like provides the faculty to note down and observe students' attitudes and rank them. So for example, this attitudinal scale would not be moreover associated in a school or a college setup. Probably it is more going to be associated in a professional or a corporate level, right, where assessment or evaluation can be done of candidates, of probably employees on the level of attitudes, on the parameter of attitude and personality that they have and they carry. For example, the ranks are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where 1 means the best attitude and 5 means the worst attitude. So maybe the employer may mark according to these attitudes and performances within sub parameters. For example, personality, intellect, communication skills, code of conduct, willingness to participate. All of these can be subcategories of the major parameter of attitude, and on that scale the employers can rank the employees, and that can be used for their performance appraisal, right? So that is what is attitudinal scale. And then we have the anecdotal records. Now, like you see this word record. Record means, again, it's like a note that can be made by a faculty, by a person in authority of a certain thing that may have happened. Okay, for example, you are observing 10 students in a class, okay, and you have to evaluate them for all the activities that they did the whole semester. Now, the whole semester would count for not just academic activities but also cultural activities, co-curricular activities. Maybe there were events that were conducted and they participated, they performed, they took leadership roles, they followed some leadership roles. All of that can be noted in an anecdotal record, which can be given as a remark along with their semester evaluation at the very last moment. So anecdotal records are the ones which can be provided to the students at the very last of their semesters. For example, their whole performance all of the year can be accumulated and written as a note, as a remark by the faculty or faculties, and then it can be consolidated and can be given to the student as to how what all they did, on what all parameters they were judged, or they had their achievements, or they were recognized, and a congratulatory note can be also provided. So anecdotal records are actually not just giving students a certain affirmation or recognition on their performance, but it's also a very nice way or a gesture to tell students how they were observed. So this is also one of the important links towards the evaluation process. Then we have the behavioral assessment. Now, behavioral assessment is moreover like attitudinal scale, although attitudinal scale is like a scale on which the candidates or anyone can be categorized, while behavioral assessment can be like a series of tests which can be put together like an assessment, like a record. So you can have various tests in a particular evaluation system or a process which can be conducted and which can gauge various performances of students or candidates on the basis of their behavior. Normally, any task which is provided to the student on the basis of their leadership qualities, on the basis of their confidence, on the basis of their team spirit, on the basis of how coordinated they are, on the basis of the communication skills, and many plethora of other parameters can be used to identify how the behavioral assessment would be done by the faculties. Then we have Then there's also another way in which evaluation can be done, which is through diaries and journals. Now, this is a very basic fundamental way to make journals and diaries, especially at school level assessments and evaluations. Diaries and journals are made by teachers and faculties so that they can record all of these observations that they may have done for a particular student, who is great in class, who is weak in class, who can understand quickly or is a good learner, or who is a reverse. All of those observations can be accumulated and put together in a form of an essay and or enlisted in a diary, so that the next teacher who's going to teach the students in the next year may take notes of all of these journals and diaries and can know, okay, this was the performance in the last few years of this student, and these are the attitudes, and these are the behaviors, and these are the co-curricular activities that they participated in. All of that is going to very much help the other teacher in the next year or the next academic year to associate with that student and to also provide more efficient teaching learning experience to that student or those number of students. So that is how we use diaries and journals. And then we have the psychometric testing. Now, psychometric testing is a very scientific way of evaluation. It's not exactly how a person or a candidate or a student is going to be evaluated on the basis of whatever they are doing in that particular semester or academic year, but psychometric tests usually are drawn or designed in a way so that they would be helpful in identifying which type of career opportunities are available for what type of intelligence and emotional quotient that student has. Mostly psychometric tests are going to involve a variety of different types of questions. Sometimes they are going to be logical, analogical, reasoning based, simple mathematical, algebraic, blood relations, and many more. There would be various types of diagrams, Venn diagrams that the students or the candidate would be solving. All of that is going to be compiled, and that compilation is then going to be given for analysis. This analysis is very scientific in nature, and this analysis is going to identify what are the broad macro areas in which a student or a person can identify themselves as a career opportunity. It's a very good test, and normally this type of evaluation or psychometric tests are given to the students of 10th standard, so that whatever subjects they would want to take forward in the 11th and 12th, they can decide on the basis of that psychometric test. Many a times they are given after 12th standard, so that again a major career change happens after 12th standard, after graduation. So these are the landmark barricades, and on each of the barricade a psychometric test is definitely going to identify with what type of direction academic career or any type of a career opportunity can be achieved by that particular student. And then lastly, we have the projective assessment. Projective assessment. On the basis of various types of projects, this assessment is taken. Projective assessment is based on not just a project which is just a compilation of ideas or concepts or topics and put it in a folder, file, all that, but it can also be very innovative, inventive. Projective assessment is definitely going to be showcasing how a student can perform, how they can project their knowledge, their ideas, their concepts through a certain work that they may have done. It can be like a dissertation, it can be like a thesis, it can be like a model, architectural small model that can be made. Many things can be done inventively, and which is why projective assessment can also turn around to be a very creative way to take out all the creativity and talent of the student. It of course requires a lot of instructions to be given to the students so that they perform exceedingly well in this type of an evaluation procedure. So these are the most inventive techniques and tools which are designed under the evaluation processes.